Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Today we are on Recent Horror Watches episode 4 where I talk about the last 10 things I watched that are horror related. So it could be a movie, documentary, TV show or whatever. Now there are reviews for some of these films that I'm about to talk about, guys, so I'll leave that in the description down below. More notably the Sleepaway Camp movies that I'm going to talk about. But also don't forget to stay for the end of this video to find out my pick of the bunch. Now, if you want to see more episodes of this and you enjoy this video, they will be in the description down below. Now, the title may be a tiny bit misleading because there might be the odd thriller, dark story movie thrown in, not full horror there, but, you know, there are horror elements in them if I include them. So let's just get into it now with the first thing that I watched in these past 10 horror watches. First up is a 90s slasher called Cherry Fall, starring Brittany Murphy and Michael Biehn. Now, this was a first time watch for me, and I'd heard a lot about it, like it was one of them typical 90s slashers, but it was kind of fun, and that's exactly what it was. This follows a serial killer, an unmasked serial killer, so we have a whodunit movie here, who's going around this school, or this town of Cherry Falls, must I say, although most of it takes place in a high school, killing off virgins. And a lot of the characters in the movie decide to have this big sex party where they're all going to mate with someone and lose their virginity so they are safe from the killer. Now, this is a pretty standard slasher film from the 90s where you kind of know where it's going, even though I didn't guess the ending, so credit to that. If you've got a whodunit movie and you don't guess the ending, that is always a plus. But some of the reasoning of why Michael Biehn, who's the sheriff in this town, decides to think that this killer is just killing off virgins was hilarious to me, because he's got 2 victims, or was it, I think it was 3 victims, and 2 of them are virgins, and they don't quite know if the other one's a virgin, so he just says, he must be killing virgins. I mean, couldn't that just been a coincidence? But it's nice to see Brittany Murphy in one of her earlier roles, God rest her soul. She was such a great actress. She's awesome in this movie as well, and I just had a fun time with it. Not one of the best slashers I've ever seen or anything, but it's just a pretty substandard slasher, if you like. 7 out of 10 movie, but I would watch this again and I had a lot of fun with it. So that is Cherry Falls. Next up we have Sleepaway Camp 3 Teenage Wasteland, which was me carrying on my Sleepaway Camp review series, and I'll leave that down below in the description if you want to check them out. I've reviewed them all on this channel. Now, this was filmed directly after part 2. I had such a fun time with part 2. I didn't expect it at all. The first one was great as well, but part 2 was just so much fun. I just went out there to be a horror comedy, and it kind of threw me off a little bit. I didn't expect it. And Pamela Springsteen was having the time of her life in this film, but you can definitely tell she has been thrust right back into the role here, probably unexpectedly, and her heart just isn't in this one. She's still a fun character to be around, but she just seems half-hearted, and that's what the whole movie felt like, a half-hearted version of Sleepaway Camp 2. The kills are mostly off-screen. They're nowhere near as fun. The characters in this are just very unlikable. There's so many foul, racist characters in this movie as well. Now, I'm not really one to say that so many things are racist these days, but this film definitely has so many racist undertones going for it. I couldn't believe some of the characters in this, some of the stuff they were saying. And overall, there was no story, really. It tries to attempt to have a story with mixing these lower class people with these working, with these higher end class people, and mixing them together to see how they get on in the camp. But there was no story arcs to get behind here or anything. There was no final twist, nothing like that. It was just Pamela Springsteen fucking people up again, once again, like she did in the second. And what I liked about the second, it weren't a whodunit movie. It just totally done something different to the first one. But this one tries to be the second one again, which unfortunately didn't fully work. However, you can still have a fun time with this. You can still have a few beers with friends and, you know, watch it and kick back and laugh at the hilarity of it, because there's some really strange dialogue and stuff in here. It's one of them so bad it's good movies, if you like, but more bad than good. But that is Sleepaway Camp 3 Teenage Wasteland. Next up, we have Talk to Me, which was a scream unseen at my local audience. So we went to the cinema to see a horror movie and we didn't know what it was. Whatever it comes on screen, that's what you're watching. And it was in fact Talk to Me from debut directors of the channel, Raka Raka. Yes, these YouTubers decided to make a movie. I think they're called the Philippou brothers. I think one of them is called Daniel Philippou, but I'm sorry, I forgot the other one's name. The two Australian brothers. And this was their first movie they made. And you know what? I'm very excited to see more from them because this was an awesome film. One of the best of 2023. This sees this hand that when you shake it and say, talk to me, you sort of become possessed, or you can sort of see things from another point of view. These demons appear and stuff. Don't want to say too much regarding the story because there are twists and turns along the way, but these characters decide to use this hand for a party trick and everyone's taking turns to have a go of it and stuff like that. Really, really fun and unique concept. And demonic possession isn't usually my type of subgenre, but it definitely done something new with this. I thought Sophie Wilde, who was in the lead performance, was absolutely brilliant in this movie. And it was just a real nice surprise with an awesome third act to boot. You know, it really did set everything up there nicely. And I thought the ending of this film was fantastic as well. Just very well paced. Unraveled its story brilliantly, and one of my favorite horror movies of 2023. So I've got a full review for this down below if you want to check that out as well, but that is Talk to Me. Next up, I watched Nightmare Beach. Now, I did not have any hope for this movie whatsoever, but every time I went to pick the Blu-ray up, the poster art was just staring at me. So I thought, you know, I'm just going to give this a go. And lo and behold, I was very surprised by this. This follows this motorcycle gang in Florida. And all these teenagers are over for spring break and these murders have occurred. And they think one of these motorcyclists is this serial killer and they decide to execute him. And after he's been executed, the murders still carry on occurring. So they don't know if he's come back from the dead or if it's somebody else. And it's another whodunit slasher movie. But I was very surprised by how good this one was. It didn't just be very average with its story. It tried to do things where it was having like the police department up against these motorcyclists, and it followed these two characters who'd suffered friends or family loss from the hands of the killer, so they're trying to uncover who the killer is and stuff. I did not guess the end either, which is another plus for a whodunit movie. But the kills here are the bread and butter of this film. There's some really awesome kills, most of them involving electricity. But at one moment, this woman's face was just burnt off by a flamethrower. And I thought the special effects, the practical effects, should I say, were pretty great. Now, I'm going to be doing a full review for this on the channel, so do look out for that. But I was really surprised by Nightmare Beach, and I just thought it had a kick-ass soundtrack to boot as well. One of my now favourite slashers from the 80s, maybe. You know, it's definitely one of my favourite summer slashers, put it that way. That is Nightmare Beach. Next up, we have the very worst movie on this list. Probably the worst movie I'll ever see. And if I was doing a tear of the episode instead of my pick of the bunch, this would definitely be it. And that is Sleepaway Camp 4, The Survivor. Now, in all fairness, the director, to him, only had time to shoot bits of this movie and the production company was shut down. So this basically is a film of about 10 or 15 minutes of brand new footage, and the rest is just a montage of kills from Sleepaway Camp 1, 2, and 3. So basically it follows this young lady who survived one of the camp massacres by Angela, and she goes to this camp and relives moments, and it's just her sunbathing and staring into the distance, and as she stares into the distance, wherever she's looking, it will go to Sleepaway Camp 1 or 2 or 3 and what happened in that location that she's staring at, and just show lots of footage. Yes, nearly the whole movie is footage from them 3 films, which was very disappointing. And just a slap in the face to Sleepaway Camp fans, in my opinion. This should never have been called Sleepaway Camp 4. It should have just been maybe a special feature on a Blu-ray disc or something explaining what happened. That would have been way more interesting. It looked like shit as well visually. I watched this on 2 different versions and both versions looked awful. So I can only assume that this movie just looks like crap. The ending with the new footage just did not make sense to me. It was just a waste of 70 minutes. And if I tell you, if you go and watch my review, that will save you 65 minutes because that's a 5-minute review instead of a 70-minute movie. And I will tell you every reason why you should not watch this. Just go right to Return to Sleepaway Camp, which is coming up in a minute, and even that is not great, but definitely better than this one. So Sleepaway Camp 4, The Survivor, a pile of absolute garbage. Next up, we have James Wan's follow-up film to Saw, Dead Silence. This is a film I've always wanted to watch, and this is about this guy who is given a package by a mysterious person. It just arrives in the post there, and it's this ventriloquist dummy. And on that night, he shoots out to the shop and comes back and finds that his wife has been murdered. On the night this ventriloquist dummy came into his home, and he is a suspect in the murder, and he just says, you know what, I'm just going to find out who sent me this package, why my wife was killed, and he sets out to uncover all the details and what happened himself before he is charged with the murder, basically. And he goes back to this town where it sort of has a curse about it with ventriloquist dummies and a history of the dummies and stuff. And this woman who sort of was led to possess these dummies and stuff like that. It sounds like an interesting concept. I always like a good killer doll movie. But first of all, this was very dated. It felt very early 2000s, even though I think it was 2007 actually. But it just felt dated. The CGI towards the end was laughable. I mean, why are you putting CGI on a ventriloquist dummy, please? Probably my least favorite James Wan film, who is an amazing director. You know, I've got a lot of respect for him, but this just wasn't for me. I know this movie has its fans, but for me personally, it just, I didn't enjoy this film, unfortunately. So that is Dead Silence. So next up, we do have Return to Sleepaway Camp, the 5th or really 4th installment in this franchise, whatever you want to call it. You can call Part 4 a movie, but this is an absolutely crazy time. Now, this is director Robert Hiltzik coming back, who directed the original, and that's the only other movie he's made. And he come back to do another Return to Sleepaway Camp film. There's some returning cast members from the original movie. So I can imagine fans of this series were hyped at the time in 2008 to watch this one. Unfortunately, this movie is not very good at all. But what I will give it is there are some so bad it's good moments in this movie, mainly because of the lead character Alan. Now, I have never seen anyone like this guy in my life. He's a bully who gets bullied, so you can't sympathize with him because you hate him. The movie asks you so many feelings to have towards him, but I just didn't know what Robert Hiltzik wanted from me here, because I just did not like this guy at all. He's just an absolute crazy psychopath who is this giant man baby. You have to see the film to believe it. You won't believe what this character is like. So he was the absolute best and worst thing about this movie, because he brings it down a lot with how much you hate him, but there are some moments where you just can't help but laugh at how outrageous he is. And he's always walking around talking to characters saying, like, your ass stinks. That's all he says to them. So yeah, that is Alan, one of the most bizarre movie characters I've ever seen. I've been thinking about doing a top 10 worst horror movie characters, and he will definitely be in that list, I'm sure of it. But what I liked about this one is it does try to be a little bit creative with the kills compared to Part 3. However, some of them are very outlandish and far-fetched. Like, there's no way the killer could count on so many things to go in his favour for this kill to happen. One moment involving a person getting his testicles pulled off. If you watch my review, I'll go into that more detail. But this wasn't a very good film, and the novelty of Alan just being bizarre totally wore off halfway through the movie, and there's no one to get behind here. There's no story arcs, kind of like Part 3, apart from the last moment of the movie, which I thought was really cool, but then felt like another smack in the face to fans of the franchise, because these characters who come back, they're just cameos. You know, they're not massively involved in the story or anything, and there's some terrible acting along the way in this film. So overall, not a very good movie at all. That is Return to Sleepaway Camp. Next up, we have a movie starring Neil Maskell called Bull. Now, this is more a revenge thriller than horror, but there are definitely horror elements thrown into certain scenes in this movie, not to give anything away, but there is a little bit of horror thrown in, so I just threw this in here. Now, this kind of reminded me of a very gruesome, brutal, and violent version of Dead Man's Shoes. Dead Man's Shoes is the better film, don't get me wrong, but this was just, oh man, there were some moments in this movie where I was like, holy shit, I kind of looking away at the screen and stuff. And this follows Neil Maskell, who's involved with this criminal family and he is killed by them, and he wants to come and seek revenge somehow. So you don't quite know if they have killed him or not, or he got away or whatever. The movie's climax will tell you more, but he comes back for revenge on all these characters and to find his son, who may or may have not been killed, or take revenge on his son, should I say. So it's just a full-on revenge thriller. And Neil Maskell, man, who is in the Football Factory and stuff, I didn't know he had this performance in him. I thought he was an okay actor, but man, he is absolutely brilliant in this movie. He is terrifying. He is scary. You can't take your eyes off him. And unless you're a character in the movie, by the way, because this guy looks at you, you look away, man. He is just out there to murder people who have crossed him. And there are so many brutal moments in this movie where fingers are chopped off, you know, women are just slaughtered without even thinking about it. There's a moment on a fairground ride where he kills someone, where it's going really fast and stuff, and I was like, holy shit. The other characters in this movie are horrible people as well. It's just a film that is very dirty, gritty, grimy, and just one that you should absolutely watch as well if you like dark cinema and revenge thrillers or thrillers in any way. Definitely give this a go. This came on Netflix. I'd heard a lot about it. It's a 2021 movie, but when it finally came on Netflix, I give it a go, and you should too. So that is Bull. Next up, we have Mother May I, a brand new 2023 film, and this will say horror drama on Letterboxd and IMDb, but I definitely think this is more of just a drama movie. There's a little bit of horror imagery and horror elements thrown in, and the title sounds like a horror movie, doesn't it? But it's definitely more drama focused. It just uses the horror to get its story and its climax across, if you like, if that makes sense. Anyway, this follows Kyle Gallner and Holland Roden, this couple. And Kyle Gallner's mother has left him his house because she's died. So they go and check the house out. They don't know whether to sell it or keep it or whatever. And they get on the magic mushrooms while they're staying there overnight. And the next day, Holland Roden's character has took the personality of his mother. She's looking after him. She's bringing him breakfast in bed. She's talking to him like it's her son. They don't know if she's on a bad trip or they've actually been possessed by the dead mother. Now, I thought this movie was very dull and boring, I'm not going to lie. And it all leads to this climax, which wasn't that clever, in my opinion. The final bits of dialogue were like, I was like, oh, yeah, and then that was it. The movie is very slow paced. It's a very slow burner, which I don't mind sometimes, but here just nothing really is happening apart from the moments where Holland Roden's character was acting like the mother. That was a little bit creepy at times, and Kyle Gallner has got his fans, but she definitely stole the show here. She was definitely the better cast member in this movie. I thought she was excellent. Some of the faces she pulls and stuff, and the way she can just switch personalities with her character was awesome to me. But overall, not a very good movie. I would never watch this again. It just kind of bored me to tears, and afterwards I was like, kind of wish I didn't watch that now. Kudos for trying, but I don't think the execution was all that great. So that is Mother May I. And last up, we do have Cobweb. Now, I'd heard a lot about this. It's been out in the US before the UK for a little bit there. Nothing new there then, is there? And I've done a full review of this one on the channel as well. Now, this follows a young boy who can hear noises inside the wall of his house, and he thinks someone might be living in the walls. He's trying to communicate with them and stuff, and his mother and father tell him to just ignore it, and there's nothing there. It's his imagination, but the mother and father may hold a secret or a dark past, let's say. That's all I'm going to say about that. Now, this felt like a very fresh and original idea, even though it did give me People Under the Stairs vibes. It definitely done its own thing, and it all had this very autumnal feel. It's all based around Halloween. You know, I loved the look of this film. So the way the story tells the first two acts was just so many twists and turns. I couldn't quite guess where it was going, and in the end I kind of gave up and just sat back and thought, you know, I'm just going to let it tell me this story. I had a great time with this. The third act is awesome as well, all the setup that it leads to. And yeah, it just felt like a brand new movie that I had seen before. Very, very fresh and original. And again, from another first time director there. So looks like we're getting a few new upcoming horror directors, let's hope. with the guys from Talk to Me and this film. So that is Cobweb. Definitely recommend it, and one of the best horrors of 2023. Okay guys, we are at my pick of the bunch, and for my pick of the bunch, I'm going to go with Talk to Me. Yeah, I just had a really good time with this. Being at the Scream Unseen kind of elevated that a little bit there, because you didn't kind of know what you were going to see, but it just felt like such a brand new twist on the subgenre of possession horror there, really. You know, the film just flied by, very well paced, and just a brilliant film from A24. So for me, I'm going to go with Talk to Me for my pick of the bunch. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this recent horror watches. Don't forget, there are 3 more episodes before this down below in the description, along with lots of reviews for these films that I talked about. Have you seen any of these movies? What do you think's the best? Is there any you didn't like here? Do you agree with my thoughts on Dead Silence, for example? Let me all know down below, and we'll get a discussion going. So thanks so much everyone. You all take care, and I'll see you all in the next video.